Hello, everyone, and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Shea, Dixon, and Matthew Brune as we launch what's going to be a lot of fun each and every single Sunday night, time pending, especially as Brune makes that 10-hour drive back from Clemson next weekend. But hey, we're ready to talk a little bit about LSU football as we get ready to wrap up fall camp and we get ready to talk, obviously, 2025 season predictions. Before we start, easy for you to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right down there below and set up notifications so you know when we go live next time, when that content drops. Also, make sure you head over to the Bengal Tiger where you can get a great deal right now that includes an annual subscription to The Athletic with unlimited access to in-depth, personalized coverage of your favorite sports from The Athletic. It's access available after the completion of the trial. It's $1 for your first week on the Bengal Tiger, and then you get that year-long subscription. So make sure you check all those things out. But fellas, welcome in. Shea, we'll delegate to you, man. Here, first off, I always like to do question of the day. So what's on the dinner menu? Have you already eaten? Are you eating after this? So we have to cut it short. What's the plan?
Oh, after this, I thought I got to do the question of the day. I think the question of the day would be from fans. Matty B, we have to welcome Bryce. People are so used to hearing just you and I after Billy's been moved on to the Ole Miss market. So Bryce, welcome to your first three-man show here. And Matty B handed you the keys, which
he
is
gave me the car, actually. He gave me the car completely. Yeah, he said, here's the keys, the car, spare keys as well. Matty B, what's on the menu?
To answer your question, I have leftovers from California Pizza Kitchen in the fridge, so that's where.
Not an ad. Hashtag not an ad. But
not an ad. Yeah, I forget. Right? Yeah, not an ad. Not an ad. But yes, California.
There's
Pizza
no
Kitchen.
free promotion on this show.
That's what I had yesterday, and we got leftovers in the fridge. So.
Okay, I like it. We got spaghetti cooking, some sauce, homemade sauce on the stove when we get done. So I'm pumped about it. But hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, continue to pile in here on a Sunday evening. And also, too, if you're watching this after the fact, we appreciate you. And if you're listening on all those podcast feeds, man, make sure to like, share with your friends, and continue to subscribe to the channel. It continues to help us on all of those different platforms. Well, fellas, we got to watch a riveting Saturday night scrimmage inside Tiger Stadium. In all seriousness, though, Shea, we'll start here with you, man, as we kind of wrap up fall camp. You know, it's one of those things where we did have a decent amount of media access. Brian Kelly let us see a lot of things, but just in terms of maybe some things that you heard that you liked and maybe things that concern you a little bit, where do you stand on LSU as we leave fall camp and get ready for game week?
Yeah, what do you want? Do you want my season prediction right now, or do I need to give some thoughts? We got to tease this first. We got to keep them around.
We got to get up there.
I think that the biggest takeaway from talking to sources matches the takeaways y'all had, and I'm not going to speak for y'all, but me and Matty B do this. I get to say something, and then if he was going to say the same thing, now he has to pick something different. So I will say that we get this, right? Anyone listening who follows football in the off season, defense usually wins, right? Like in the spring, the defense is out front. By fall camp, the defense knows everything that's being called. And with the Blake Baker attacking defense, you're working in 5 new starters on the O-line and some new transfer pieces in there as well as at other positions. No shock of that, but I think that's for a reason. This defense the bar was set low in recent years, but this is the best defense of the Kelly era. When you combine returning players, high school signees like Pickett, and then obviously a massive portal haul, I am so impressed by what they have in the trenches, and maybe most notably on the edges, but I do like the interior as well. I think that group will be able to wreak some havoc in games. And look, I think there's a couple of storylines here that all offseason we kind of knew about, but that get reiterated behind the scenes. One, I felt like we went through the whole spring and summer and people forgot Harold Perkins was on this team. We have a roundtable coming out on Monday morning. And Bryce, you asked who could lead the team in sacks. And I think everybody would say it's a D end, is it one of those guys? Harold Perkins is right in that mix. So that's a guy I think that people just from the whole getting injured to moving to linebacker forget he's back at star. That's the position where he broke through as a true freshman. He was a 5-star number 1 linebacker for a reason. He's going to be a massive part to this defense. And then it's just so easy to slip by that Garrett Nussmeier is returning to this team with a whole year and the bowl game prior under his belt. And that year to 1 to year 2 jump, guys, is talked about more than anything relative to quarterbacks in college football. And everybody said Nuss has made that jump. Don't worry about him only handing the ball off in scrimmages or that scare they had where, in reality, he was dealing with an injury that he already had, but everybody said that basically he took a chopper to, Dr. Andrews immediately and had to stay on a hospital bed for a week. None of that was true. And the biggest thing is, and boy, they had 18 periods yesterday. When the 18th period ended, no one was hurt. That was the biggest win of the final practice scrimmage of fall camp. And I'll have a story on this tomorrow. I'll post some tidbits tonight on the Bengal Tiger message board, but they're going to go into next week in full strength. Now, Solomon Thomas, like a backup O-lineman freshman, has been injured. We already know, but the guys who have not been ruled out, even if they're on the injury report, barring a setback, the expectation is they go to Clemson at full strength. So I think the combination of getting those vets like Nuss back, Perkins, we saw the emergence of other guys a year ago like Weeks, and then the reality that this is a healthy team. I mean, they went through spring and fall camp without guys getting injured and missing a significant amount of time into the season, which leaves a lot of question marks. So everything you could have asked for is here. Amazing portal class, great high school signing class. You retained well, and no one got injured. And really staff continuity. So we go into this season thinking, hey, look, this is their best shot at making the playoffs in the Kelly era.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like how you highlighted a lot of those storylines and then kind of how they developed into the fall. Brune, I'm gonna go first so you don't take mine. I'm just gonna go ahead and flex that since I'm in the middle of the screen here. Brune knows this because every time we've been out at fall camp, and I'm not just first off running my mouth to distract others from their camp notes.
Beautiful.
That's part of the plan, right? So I love Shea. I love the safety play and the potential of what you brought in out of this group. I mean, Bruny's laughing because I think I've said it.
That's what I was going to pick. So
yeah, I mean,
see, this is what we do to Brune. It's a running joke. He has to ultimately get down to his fourth option that he wanted to talk about.
But man, you bring in AJ Halsey, who to me just the willingness, and I've said this in so many practice reports and just on the board as well, the willingness to play in the run game and to play that run alley is something that it's positive for LSU, but I think it's not just the willingness, it's his ability to do it effectively. I mean, he has shown that he is willing to do that and make plays when they go full 11 on 11. And so I love that aspect of what you did. And then on the other side, Tamarcus Cooley and aggression. I mean, I list him as a guy who I thought, we kind of thought would be in the mix to start somewhere maybe in July or something like that. We get into fall camp and I think he solidified himself opposite of Halsey on the back end of the defense. So just in terms of those two guys, you brought in veterans that have a lot of snaps, know how to play the game, and it's given you depth to where I'm still high on Deshaun Spears, but you're not forcing him to do something he's not ready for. And I think, and you guys can correct me, you guys have been around the beat longer than I have. For the first time in a long time, it kind of feels like that is the case with all three levels of the defense. You're not having to force guys into positions that they're not ready for. Now, we could get there and some guys are to turn out not to be ready, but in terms of snap count, in terms of what they've done at previous stops, the logic would, if you followed it, would tell you, hey, these guys are ready while you can still groom and develop some of these younger players. So, Brune, I'll delegate to you, but the safety play to me, the floor has elevated significantly, even from the bowl game last year.
Before you go, Brune, let me chime in. You said snaps. The two starters are going to be AJ Halsey and Cooley, as Bryce just said. AJ Halsey coming off an all-conference season out of the Big 12. He played 703 snaps on defense last year. And then Cooley played 620 snaps on defense last year.
And Halsey's a 3-year starter from New Mexico State, 2 years at Houston. He's over 2,000 snaps in his career.
And then Matty B, I'll probably just steal what you're about to say anyways and add in one more about just because really, guys, let's be real. The defensive backfield was the talking point of the past couple of seasons because they weren't up to the DBU standard. You toss in Mansour Delane, I would guess, I don't have a snap count in front of me. Matty B, you probably know. I'd bet he's played more snaps than anyone on the football team.
Yeah.
So 3 of your 4 guys that are starting at DB are coming in with, as you noted, last year they all played 700 snaps, but over their career, they're in the thousands of snaps. That's a lot of experience. And they're good at football.
Yes. All right, who's left?
So now your turn.
I'm gonna go tight ends because I think as good as I knew that they were, Bauer Sharp has been just so consistent day in, day out. And then Trades Green, we watch him in practices, and it's every time we write standout pieces or notes or anything like that, it's always Trades Green made an awesome play. Trades Green has a touchdown catch. Like, he is always highlighted in this. And so I'm interested to see how they use it, how they utilize both of them, how much 12 personnel they use in this situation. And Trades can obviously be used as a slot receiver at times, like he can flank out. But they have, to me, raised the ceiling of this offense because of their versatility and what they can do. And Trades, I've seen him try to get some blocking reps in there, try to continue to round out his game, but he is just such a freak athlete at tight end that you have those two. It's very, very impressive to watch them in practice. So I feel really good about the tight end spot for Garrett Nussmeier this year.
It's that subtle brag that Bauer Sharp led the Sooners in receiving last year, with the caveat being that every receiver they had on the team got hurt. So
I remember those injury reports.
At least there's that. I'm trying to look at his recruiting profile with Trades. I'm pretty sure he finishes a 5-star, but I think he was the number 1 receiver in the country. Number one tight end in the country.
Yes.
Above the rim player. We saw that at Bama in his short stint with the basketball team, but 6.5. And Matty B, you talk about how do you utilize them. Just go to the Baylor game and do what you did then. When you get into the red zone, just throw it to Trades. And one of my favorite lines of fall camp was Brian Kelly's. Yeah, Trades is covered, but he's never covered. So just throw it up to him.
Michael Van Buren, when he was at quarterback a few times in fall camp and Trades was on the field, you could tell when he didn't think he had anything, he would just turn immediately to Trades and just kind of throw it up there. So that's the game plan sometimes.
That was the old Joe Burrow quote, the F it, Jamar Jets is down there somewhere line,
I wanted to ask you guys this as we leave fall camp, because this is something that, Brune and I saw a lot of, and I know, Shea, you've talked about this a little bit. I'll go back. We'll start with Brune on this one. The one thing that concerns me and has plagued this team at different times is being able to punch it in for 6. And the efficiency inside the red zone is something where, Brune, you and I saw, like, they were getting desperately creative at times to try to do some things over the past couple of years. How do you feel about it if they've got a lineup on Saturday night, first and goal to go from the 9-yard line? What's your confidence level in 4 plays? They're playing 4 down territory. They got to go get 6. Where do you feel like they are in terms of that, just going forward and maybe even for this week?
Yeah, that's been the biggest question, is the red zone offense, finishing drives inside the 10. We saw them go wildcat sometimes in fall camp with Juwan Johnson. We've seen them direct snap it to the running backs. They have tried things in fall camp to get creative, and at least, with some of the questions of the offensive line, they know if we can't punch it in, we have to figure things out. That's where Trades Green comes into play, Bauer Sharp. That's where Nussmeier potentially keeping a couple runs and whatnot. That's where all that comes into play. I think there is valid concern, at least, again, because you're going against Clemson week 1, not to get too deep into that, but that's where some of the concern comes in, is that are they ready immediately to move Peter Woods in this defensive line? I don't know the answer to that yet, but based off what it was last year, obviously there's going to be question marks, and obviously they're going to have to figure some things out. And I think Joe Sloan and the offense know this and they understand this. So whether that is just having to figure things out with a passing attack when you're inside the 10, or featuring Trades or going Wildcat, whatever it is, maybe getting under center. Who knows? I mean, that's going to be a big question because you have to be able to convert in the red zone better than they did last year if they're going to win games.
I will say, what was it 2 years ago? Obviously, Jaden and that group were different, but they were a top 20 red zone offense, and they scored 90% of the time, whether it was touchdowns or field goals, and touchdowns far outweighed the field goals. A year ago, they were at 83%. And that might not seem like a deep fall, like you fell off a cliff, but that's 74th in the country instead of top 20. So it's like Matty B, how we would talk last year of like they were 2 years ago, 130th worst defense. Can Baker cut that in half? They finished in the 60s. Like, Bryce, can they get from out of 74? Are you going to be top 20? Probably not. But can you get to 30, 40 instead of being completely outside the top 50, barely in the top 75? I definitely think that's a big thing. And boy, does that not tie right in, guys, to O-line and run game.
Yeah. I could probably, without going too far into the nitty-gritty of it, guys, you could probably go back to several games and say if they convert here or they convert there, this is a team that, is playing a meaningful game against Oklahoma. They're in the final week of the season in terms of potential playoff projection. Now, some of the games withstanding, you can say you can always play the he said, she said game of and play that. But yeah, I mean, we can tackle this real quick and then move on to the next topic conversation. Run game, Shea. I'm gonna throw it right back at you, man. I mean, look, we know what Caden Durham can be, right? But he can make guys miss the line of scrimmage, but you don't want your, highly touted running back having to make 2, 3, 4 guys miss at times. Do you buy stock into the worry that's going to carry over for a lot of fans, or you feel like this is different and this offensive line will figure it out even though they face a tough opponent in week 1?
They were the worst running team in the SEC last year. So I have to see it to believe it. And so many people, I think, say, well, Caden Durham's great. Obviously, not everyone's Jaden Daniels. Garrett's going to need to take off and run more. But, yeah, the reality is they're working in 5 new O-linemen. But me and Matty B would talk about this all the time. They had a top 5 pick on the O-line at left tackle last year. They had 4 guys on the O-line last year who had started multiple years in a row together, and they still couldn't run block, here and there. But that was kind of a major talking point of the season. Ultimately, you're the worst rushing team in the SEC. On the flip side, Nuss threw for the second most yards in school history. So you don't want to have to rely on that. So I'm not copping out here saying I don't know. I'm like Brian Kelly 2 years ago with the DBs when people were like, oh, you got some new DBs in the portal, the the Chestnut year, if you'll remember that, all those guys, Denver Harris, right. And someone was like, y'all are going to obviously be better, right? And he goes, I don't know. We'll see. I want to watch them play. So I'm going to take that route. I'm not going to say that they're going to make this big jump until I actually see it, because I know Caden Durham's talented. Harlan Berry's talented. They're mixing in Caleb Jackson. We've heard that Nuss is not Jaden Daniels, but can Nuss scramble and go get you 5 yards for a first down to keep the chains moving? I just need to see what this O-line can do. And the one thing I like, and Alex Atkins did a ton of this at Florida State, is the counter. And they've started we saw that a bit in the scrimmage, but they've done that in fall camp, spring camp. If they can get that counter game going, pulling the guards, Bryce, I think that's one thing that can at least, give you some different looks instead of kind of just running out of these same handful of sets. So I'm on a wait and see. But at least, look, the running back room is shallow, but Caden Durham's a hell of a player. So if they can find a way to get some run blocking, and sure, a great passing game can open that up, but they've got the running backs for it, and they brought in good transfers on the O-line. The guys who are starting for the first time waited their turn. Weston Davis was a 5-star. He was an above-the-rim basketball player at Beaumont United, a top 25 team in the country playing basketball. Tyree Adams, people forget, he was a top 100 player coming out of New Orleans, and now he's going to play left tackle. Like, these guys are scrubs. We just haven't seen it yet in live action. And boy, I don't know if Clemson will give us the best view of that, because, and I guess we'll get to this kind of an overall perspective of the season win-loss, but Clemson will probably be the best D-line they face.
Yeah.
Like if they don't run the ball well against Clemson, that may not mean that they're not going to run the ball at all season. This is a really, really good Clemson defensive front.
Yeah. Multiple draft picks, potentially multiple first round talents on that front. Brune, what you got?
In terms of the run game, I think Shea covered it well. I mean, it is a wait and see thing. I will say, like Shea said, like Caden Durham's the top 3 running back in the SEC this year now, and I expect him to surpass 1,000 yards just because I think he's going to get 200 plus carries this year. But we need to see, the Josh Thompsons. We need to see whoever plays left guard. We need to see these guards, I think, really hold their own and be physical if this run game is going to be able to get north and south consistently. I think the tight ends will help. Bauer Sharp will play his role. Like I said, Trey will continue to work his way in there, and then if Nussmeyer can just keep a couple of them a game, I think they'll have the improvement. And another thing is the vertical pass game ability of this team will have is night and day from last year. And I thought last year teams started really loading up in the box at times because they knew CJ Daniels wasn't beating them over the top, and some of the receivers they had weren't really deep threats a lot of the time. So I think that will play a role as well, and hopefully improved run game.
Yeah, I like that. I have one thing I will add, and we talked about this, I think, in the last fall camp report we did, Bruni. I think having a center who is comfortable and confident is going to help set the rest of the offensive line. It's not a dig at what DJ Chester was last year, but like you mentioned, Shea, I mean, you had all of that talent, but right there in the middle, at times DJ Chester struggled big time. And
he's a true freshman.
Yeah, true freshman, as he should. It begs the question, and I asked this.
Second year. No, he was a redshirt freshman.
Redshirt freshman.
Sorry, first year starter.
Sorry. I was. You had me think. Sorry.
It does beg the question: would you rather be where you were last year with a redshirt freshman making his first true starts, having to make call outs and manage a game essentially in the center position? Or do you feel more comfortable with maybe not knowing right now what you have at guard in terms of production, but you feel like at center, you've got a guy who, once again, like we talked about on the back end of that defense, has played a lot of football, was a pretty good player at Virginia Tech, understands how to make checks and make calls from the center position. It's going to be an interesting case study to kind of see, do they feel better about that? Does that make them feel better about the offensive line? Because it's got to be better, like we talked about. And it's kind of hard to not improve on the worst run game in the conference.
Yeah. O-line's like not the most fun thing to talk about when you want to talk about receivers and quarterbacks and who can Harold Perkins and Weeks and all these guys. But I'll tell you that inside that building, they feel a lot better than they did a year ago. And that's not a knock on Chester. It's a compliment to Moore, who has experience. I mean, I thought last year when Chester struggled, I thought T-Bob Abear said it best. Like, he played center here, and he said the first year he went out there as a starting center, so much is going through your mind that you're hearing whistles that don't happen. You're hearing the clap when they aren't clapping, that you're just trying not to mess up. And you're not actually thinking about what you're supposed to be doing. So Braylon Moore won't have that issue coming from Virginia Tech with all the playing time he has.
Fall camp in the rear view mirror as we get ready to embark on the 2025 season. Well, fellas, it kind of takes us to the next topic of conversation tonight. And look, we are going to get to those predictions. Don't worry. I love this comment right here. 4 verticals every play. Why not? We've seen that, be run on EA quite a few times against Louisiana Tech. Isn't that right, Brune? That was a lot of fun.
Yes,
but let's get to kind of one of the big questions. We'll talk about this more in depth on that roundtable tomorrow. Good reason for you to subscribe over at the Bengal Tiger for that content. But the sneakiest game, Brune, I'm going to start with you here. What is the sneakiest game you feel like for LSU as they embark, the one that maybe the overall fans feel confident about, maybe not put a lot of stock in, but you're like, hey, you trip up too much, you mess around too much, you could find yourself in a tough battle in the fourth quarter, or maybe on the losing end?
Yeah, I always lean road games. Like I think year over year, I predict LSU to win its home games. I know last year the 2 losses I predicted were both road games at Florida, at A&M. I just think there are times where LSU can play maybe not its best game at home and come out with a win, as evidence of like Ole Miss last year. So road games, they don't get that boost. So that's immediately where my head goes. And they obviously play Clemson and Alabama on the road. Those aren't sneaky games to anybody. Those are going to be dogfights for LSU to pull out a win. So you look at the rest of it, and it's Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma are the other 3 road games on the schedule. All 3 of them are tricky to me. I think, obviously they all have different things that can go right for them, go wrong for them. Vanderbilt has Pavia and whatnot. Oklahoma has Mateer and a new offensive coordinator. But I'm going to stick with Ole Miss being kind of a sneaky game that I even concede the point that I think Ole Miss is worse than it was last year. I think there are real holes that they had to fill last with Walter Nolan gone and Jackson Dart gone, Trey Harris gone. They had 8 draft picks last year, which is incredible, or this year, which is incredible for an Ole Miss program. That speaks to what Lane Kiffin has done. But I do think playing that game on the road, and Lane Kiffin, who knows how to use the portal, I think they reloaded pretty well, and I think they have some talent. Defensively, Centering Perkins is a guy, and I think they're going to have enough talent there to really give LSU some issues potentially. But again, when you look at the schedule, it's like, to me, there's not like an obvious, like, besides Clemson, Alabama, there's not like an obvious game where you're like, oh, they're really in trouble there. It's just you have to go and win the games. You have to go beat Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss. Then you go A&M at home, Florida at home. All these games. It's a tough schedule.
Shea, when you look at the schedule, what you think?
I think, and this plays in line with my season prediction piece, when you bring in guys, we've talked about working in, the reality is going to be 5 new starters. Even if DJ Chester wins the left guard job, he didn't start there last year. So every position is a new starter. Now, granted, a couple of these guys, the transfers, Josh Thompson, Braylon Moore, your center and right guard, started tons of games already for other teams. How does that group gel? I don't know. I think that's going to be something we watch. I think at the same time, look, we led off this podcast talking about things we liked, and we named a bunch of transfers, the DBs, the safeties, the corner in Mansour Delane. And then you look at, like Matty B talked about the tight end group. We know about Trades Green, Bauer Sharp's a transfer. So to expect that you're going to, and then look, Harlan Berry's expected to play a role on offense. Karius Kern's probably your 6th O lineman at this point. He's repped about everywhere on the O line. And then you throw in DJ Pickett, who could well start as a 5-star plus prospect coming out of this past cycle, #1 cornerback in the country. When you're trying to marry high school signees, a lot of transfers that are going to play, and returning guys, including many, like, we're in love with Gabe Relaford right now, right? Like year 2, Gabe Relaford. We love him. He's never started before. Like, he started one game. I think it was the bowl game maybe, but
bowl game.
This will be his, like, blending all that together and expecting to look in week 1 like you're going to look at the end of the season is far-fetched. It's not going to happen. And I think that the storyline for me with this team, at least one that I firmly believe, is yet all teams can get better as the year goes on. I just think that with how this team's set up, this team is going to look so much different in October and November than they do a week from now. And it's a tough opening month of the season. You got to brave that. You got to gel quick. But at the same time, I kind of think that's the storyline for me. Now I'll flip it by saying the last game of the year is the one at OU. Matty B mentioned it earlier, like playing on the road is a tough thing. They've never played at OU. Like, this is the first time going to OU, right? So you're in a foreign environment, and we have no idea how OU is going to be. Like, I think their win total 7.5 on bet to MGM. They could win 9 games. What if they're in playoff contention? What if both these teams have to have a win to get to the playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, the pressure's through the roof at that point. And you're coming off of, Bama is always that November game or late October, November game, depending on, now they do double buys, but Arkansas's not good. Western Kentucky's not good. Then you play Oklahoma. Like, you could be setting yourself up to where it feels like you're kind of cruising to 10 wins, 11, whatever it might be. But I think that OU game is going to hold. I don't think they're going to go into that OU game and be like, doesn't really matter if we win or lose, we're getting in the playoffs. Like, they're going to need to win that game. I think that puts extra pressure on it. And just like LSU, Oklahoma, if they don't get snake bitten by injuries again, they're going to be better than they are to start the season. So I circled that game. I think people just overlook it and they're like, well, they're not. Venables hadn't been great. They played quarterback roulette last year. Everybody got hurt. Well, that's not going to be the case this year. Like, you can't get more hurt than they were last year. So for me, that's the one I think. If you have playoff implications, you can't stumble down the stretch. You can't lose in November. Brian Kelly says that all the time. Most important month of the season is November. So can you close strong? I think that OU game is going to hold serious implications.
I was just gonna say, even if they
could suck and it won't matter.
I mean, but even if they were 8-3 going into that last game, and maybe on the outside looking in, you can't lose. Like, you can't go 8-4. Like, that game means a lot no matter what. I think
That's fair.
If you're 7-4 at that point, you have to.
Matty B, you're right. You're back into that. Well, we at least need 10 wins with a bowl game.
Yeah,
type
you have
conversation.
that game is so significant to me, and while Oklahoma has question marks, it is I mean, we saw them beat Bama last year. We saw them do something LSU couldn't do. So it's definitely that's a fascinating game to me.
Yeah, Brambo, good comment here. We saw a 500 OU team ruin Bama's playoff chances last year in Norman.
It's hard to win on the road in the SEC.
If that's Brambo's profile pick is him, does he have eligibility? We might need to suit Brambo up here.
I didn't even see that.
That's why they pay Shea right there. That might be it.
It's all in the details.
All right, so let me spend the next 3 minutes telling you why I think Western Kentucky. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm not doing that one. Don't worry. No, so you guys took really option A and B for me. So I got the Brune.
Is Vandy a tough game or a sneaky game?
Well, Brambo just brought this up. I'll step in at least.
Good.
And I wonder if OU can fit into that category because he's right. Like, Bama stumbled with those two teams. I feel like more Vandy, obviously, than OU snuck up on people last year. Yeah. Now I think that nobody's going to sleep on playing Vandy.
Some people on our board have said Florida, week 3.
I just think that's a tough game. I don't know how sneaky that is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sneaky, but it's interesting.
Sorry,
Bryce, go ahead.
Hard. No, well, I'm going to make my case here, and this is more of what I think about the opponent. You guys are right. I mean, you look at the rest of the road schedule. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I don't think anyone's going to let Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia sneak up. Everyone knows. Like, if you didn't watch the SEC documentary, you didn't watch football last year, everyone knows what the Commodores are and what they're going to try to do. I think sneaky-wise, for me, because I think they lost a lot, especially the defensive side of the football in that front seven, I'm going to go with Texas A&M. And I know what the series history tells you. I know all of this stuff. But when you really deep dive into them, and I was looking at them this morning when I was going through my projections and predictions, we'll get that here in a second, they should have one of the better rushing attacks in the conference this year. Between Marcel Reed and what they have in that backfield, multiple tailbacks, and then that offensive line that they return, I mean, they're going to be able to run the football. Now, explosive playmaking, I highlighted as a question mark for me in terms of that. You know, they lost some solid players defensively. I mean, you're going to see here in a couple of weeks what the promising young rookies in the NFL that were left that roster. I get it's at home, but if there's one home game for me that's kind of sneaky because you may just think, oh, it's the series history or something like that, I'm going to go with the Aggies because I think Mike Elko is going to have that group playing solid enough defense because, remember, he was not happy, especially in that bowl game last year with the way they played defense towards the end of the season. It was USC and was it Las Vegas Bowl? Were they out there? Yeah. I just think the Aggies are my pick because, like you said, Shea, Florida's a tough game. South Carolina, I don't think the depth is – I don't think they have – and Brune, you mentioned this the other day. I don't think their depth is where it was last year. I think they have some really top-end talent. The Aggies, to me, once again, another opportunity. Both teams could be playing for a spot to continue their postseason dreams and hopes. And, you know, that's also – and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that's before Bama that you're playing.
Correct. Yeah, so everything's still on the table for a lot of teams at that point.
Yeah, so, you know, that's pre-bye week before Bama. So, I mean – I don't know. The Aggies, to me, it's just like it was last year. You had to go out there. I get it. It's at home. Tiger Stadium, Death Valley. I love it. Like, Brune, you said this. We're the biggest Death Valley stands, and you know, we love it. Like, it gives a real home field advantage. The Aggies, to me, might be kind of sneaky, even if they aren't, you know.
They might be able to muck it up
at that point.
A little bit. They might be able to make it ugly and run the ball and play defense and keep it low scoring or something like that.
I will say, though, that – and I do believe this to be the truth because Blake Baker's is going to remind them of it, but they owned Wegman in that game. Like, A&M could do nothing, and LSU was on cruise control. And Marcel Reed comes in, and after that he scored that first touchdown, I think every LSU fan felt like you were still winning by probably double digits. And every LSU fan was like, they're going to lose this game. Like, they can't stop this kid.
Horrible loss.
Now, that doesn't mean he can't, Bryce, to your point, that Marcel Reed can't come in and run on him this year, but he's not going to sneak up on him.
Very true.
They know exactly what Marcel Reed is capable of this year, and can you stop him becomes a question, but at least it's not one of those things where you spend all week preparing for somebody and all of a sudden here comes, Marcel Reed off the bench, who is about as polar opposite as Wegman as you can get.
Yeah.
And now he's running all over you. So yeah, sure, you could lose that game, but at the same time, my sneakiness factor is lowered a bit by the reality that at least Marcel Reed is not a surprise that comes in the middle of the third quarter and steals the game from you.
I see a couple comments about Arkansas. RS Wiki down there says, poor Arky, not even mentioned in the same breath as
They are
Vandy.
that bad this year.
Could they get the interim bump? Who knows? I mean,
they
seriously.
can get a Taylon Green bump because Taylon Green's
Bobby
actually a good
Petrino
football
bump?
player.
A Bobby
That's
Petrino
it.
bump.
No.
Their money's gone
No.
to Calipari.
Yeah,
I would
well,
think
no
between Walmart, Tyson, everything else they have there, that they would be cleaning up portal guys. They just haven't done it.
Yeah.
I feel for Sam Pittman.
Has been offensive line, and that's like Pittman's calling card, right? And
Taylor
that's what's weird about
Taylon
it.
Green should have left.
Taylon Green. If
He
he's
should play.
on, I'll tell you this. If he's on, it's going to make some things interesting. If he's off, it's going to be bad.
He can sneak up on somebody.
Well, we've already seen that if they have to go to a backup, that Harold Perkins will just eat that person alive. He single-handedly beat Arkansas in a football game 2 years ago.
A couple comments I want to get to here. Ralph, you can throw these
3
up.
years ago,
Rambo
right?
says, at the end of the day, there are no cupcake conference games. Big Ten would beg to differ. Even Arkansas will bring their best effort there as well. No, and then Nola P says, thought we were going to the playoff at halftime of that A&M game.
Nussmeier's that first half was unbelievable, and there were like two drops receivers had, and then they missed a field goal, or it was a bobble snap. I don't remember the exact situation, but
the field goals were a nightmare that game. If you remember,
they should have been up like 24-7 or something, or I don't remember what it was, but it was only like 17-7, whatever. But yeah. That was they should have won that game.
Well, Brett, and I will say this because we talked a lot of quarterbacks, and now we're talking Taylon Green. What I'm looking at last year, but I have not done the research on this, so I'll make it up off the top of my head. But I can go through and look at it. Clemson has Klubnik. Let's just go through the Clemson and then the SEC games. Florida brings back Lagway. Ole Miss does not have Dart anymore. But they do have Austin Simmons. South Carolina's bringing back Sellers. Vandy brings back Pavia. A&M brings back Marcel Reed. Bama's going to have Ty Simpson, which is sort of like the Garrett Nussmeier approach, right? Like he's waited his turn.
Yeah.
Will he even be the quarterback by the time they play him? I have no idea. But if he's as good as that staff thinks he is, he will be. Arkansas, Taylon Green's coming back, and then OU has got Mateer. What I'd have to think, but more than half of them, the teams that SEC plays, that LSU plays in SEC competition, and then Clemson have returning quarterbacks. And the whole storyline of the SEC this year is how many teams are working in new quarterbacks. I feel like LSU plays more teams that bring their quarterback back than any other team in the conference.
This should be. I'll let Bryce answer it too, but like I think the drop off in quarterback play from last year, like last year's quarterback play in the SEC had dropped pretty significantly. Like Jalen Milroe wasn't good enough. Like there's, Pavia merged, but so on. Like Sellers was inconsistent. Lagway was young, whatever. This year, the quarterback play should be at a much higher level, and that will raise the level of this conference in general. So
there's going to be a lot of teams, Bernie, that are going to be dependent on that. I mean, I've said that about Lenore Sellers in South Carolina. They're going to be more dependent on him than they were last year. Is he ready to shoulder the load? Will be the question. A couple comments I got to get to here because it's just a wild one that I love, and we appreciate the interaction. First off, Aaron Adams. I always got to shout out Aaron. I don't know if you guys know this, but Aaron from my hometown, LSU fan. That now you guys did a trade. Louisiana traded Aaron to Georgia in exchange for the draft rights to me. He says that A&M game was one heck of an emotional roller coaster.
You're our player to be named later.
Yeah, I'm the player. I'm the cash considerations that went back in the trade. Nola Gumbo, amazing name. Full beard, short hair, sort of beard, medium hair, needs a haircut and a hat. We got to keep this set up for all 3-man pods. That's awesome. I love it.
I'm rocking it. No, wait. So Nola's right. I mean, that is the mix of this. Who was it before you said Bryce in our trade?
Aaron.
Aaron, right here. Aaron.
Aaron is totally right. That game was not as much of a roller coaster as a 7 overtime game, but it felt like that. It felt like a whole evening of football smashed into that 4 quarters.
Dropped. It's just a drop.
I want to see the ESPN breakdown. You know how they do win probability of like where it was at in like late third quarter to where it ultimately ended.
Yeah. We're going to get to that question. Well, we may use that as a recruiting question for the recruiting pod there, Gray. That is a good question, but we might get there later this week when we record that recruiting pod. Okay, real quick, let's keep moving through as we continue going through the show. I talked about ceiling and floor this year. If you guys just want to go quickly into this, then we can talk about why we chose the records we chose. So real quick, I'll start it off. The ceiling and floor for this team. Guys, I think it's so hard to go undefeated, and I think that casual fans were just like, okay, yeah, like 12-0. Maybe, right? Like maybe. I'm going the ceiling in the regular season for me is 11-1. I think it is doable. Like if things really trend, if everything goes right. The floor for me for this team, I want to ask you this before I say this. Do injuries factor into your floor?
No.
We can't do that right now.
Okay.
No. Imagine every team in college football is blessed with
0-12.
no injuries.
Okay.
And let's just
Yes.
go off that.
I'm going to go with 7-5 for my floor. I think if this offensive line is not good and Nussmeier has to face some serious pressure in the interior, I'm going 7-5. Might feel crazy. I was leaning 8-4, but I'm going to go 7-5 because I know that thwarts your theory about losing home games there, Brune, though.
The floor to me is 8-4.
I agree.
The questions of the ceiling are valid, I think, to a degree, because transfer portal teams can be so kind of hit or miss at times. So I understand. Like, I don't think 12-0 is fully in the car. I think the schedule is just too hard to get to 12-0. Like we saw Ohio State lose 2 games last year and win the national title. I think we've seen teams lose a game here and there and be a very, very good team. I think 11-1 ceiling. I also included in my piece, like, I think even like a national semifinal type thing, maybe national title game appearance ceiling. So I'm with, like, if everything clicks, them being one of the best teams in the country. I think the floor at 8-4 to me, just because I can't see Brian Kelly completely losing the locker room, like this team, and then I think there's too much talent on it, and you have Garrett Nussmeier. If we're assuming everybody's healthy and we're assuming Garrett Nussmeier's on the field, I think 8-4 is the floor for this team. I can't see them being worse than what they were last year, albeit maybe the schedule's tougher than it was last year.
I can't sit here and say that this is the most talented roster they have and then think that they could lose fewer than 8 games, like that they could lose more than 8 games or not win less than 8 games.
Confirm, Shea said 4-8. Confirm.
It was confusing enough to where I guess my point was made and lost in the same sentence. On BetMGM right now, guys, LSU, Bryce, go make yourself some money. Under 8.5, you can get plus 135. You're sitting at 7 if you think they can get that. That
Did
bottom.
You predict 7, Bryce?
Yeah, that was his season.
God.
That was his season prediction and his floor in one.
Yeah, nobody can get the Mingle Tire subscription, I guess.
Right.
He picked the floor.
I'm with Matty B. They've had much worse teams in the Kelly era. Granted, Jaden Daniels is on some of those teams, but Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a first-round pick. Like, yeah, they're not the same player, but like they've got really good weapons. They retooled in the transfer portal. They got some great players back. Like, you can say, I don't know how the O-line is going to be. How are the transfers going to be? Like, every team in America, there's probably Texas is the one school you can look at who's working in a first-time starting quarterback and say, they're pretty good. Ohio State doesn't have that right in. We're going to just go 12-0 or 11-1. And I think there's going to be some parity here. It's why Penn State's getting talked up as this is a now or never for James Franklin, because Michigan is working in a new quarterback. I don't know his name, but Ohio State's got a new working in Julian Sayin. Georgia isn't Bryce. Look, you can give us the scoop from the Peach State, but Kirby's not carrying around some 12-0 expectation this year. No. So many teams in the SEC are sitting at 7.5, 8.5 win totals. That doesn't mean anything. They're just trying to get everyone to bet on it, and the market evens itself out. But it's so wide open that I'm with Matty B. 8 is the floor, because I've seen teams that are worse than this under Brian Kelly win 9 games. Last year was the 8-win season, and that was year 1 of Nuss. This team's better than last year's team in a lot of ways, and you're in year 2 of Nuss. So 8 is the floor, and that means some things went wrong.
I was just say if they had swapped non-conference schedules with,
Georgia.
Let's say Alabama. Georgia, sure. Oh, well, Georgia, yeah. Doesn't Georgia have a terrible non-conference schedule?
They lost that Oklahoma game due to the SEC switch, so it's like Marshall, Austin P,
Okay.
Georgia
I was
Tech.
gonna say Alabama because that's Wisconsin and Florida State, 2 games that LSU would be favored in substantially. So it's like, if that was the case, like I might even put the floor at like 9, but that's asking a lot. Like the fact you have Clemson as your first game, even if people say Clemson's not that great, they're still at the very
Are
worst.
people saying that?
People are saying that. Go read the message boards.
Oh my
Go
God.
read the message boards, Shay.
I do. I thought you meant nationally. I know people are saying that, I'm sure, on
Well, I think they're trying to talk
the
themselves
LSU
into it.
community.
But even if Clemson's not like a national title contender, they're still a top 10 team, and you're playing on the road. So it's just
they're the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah, it immediately makes life more difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, and I would agree with y'all. 11-1. Yeah. No, 12-0 is impossible. So I'd say that 11-1 range. Not impossible. It's been done. You can go 12-0 and not make the playoffs, evidently. But 11-1 would be for me.
I'm still really from
that comes with the caveat that you beat Clemson.
Oh, I got you, by the way.
If you lost to Clemson and you went 11-1, that's insane. If you roll off 11 straight wins in the SEC.
Brune, I know what you're about to say. I've got that name for you. It's a collection of names. You have Mikey Keene. You also have Jake Garcia as potential signal callers this year for Michigan. They've got some other guys in that roster.
I've heard good things about Keene.
Yeah.
Not Jake familiar Garcia. With any of these guys. And I know who Jake Garcia is, actually.
Don't we all? Ralph just threw him in the private chat, that Georgia non-conference schedule. Marshall, Austin P, Charlotte, and Georgia Tech.
I don't know, man. Well, look, LSU's lost to Troy before, so I've seen it twice. I've been there, but maybe I'm just jabbing at Bryce here as a Peach State native, but I feel like on some of those lazy Saturdays at 11 a.m., you'll look up and it's halftime and Georgia's beating Marshall by like 3 points.
It happened with Kent State like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did. No, you're right. You're right. I hear you.
And then they win the national championship.
Yeah, they just flex on everybody. So it is it's gonna be interesting. All right, here we go. What you've all been waiting for. If you're in the chat, we got over 500 people watching live just on 2 platforms. We appreciate that. Like, subscribe, all those things. The predictions. We've talked about floor, ceiling. I'll go first with this. With my prediction, I went 9-3, 6-2 in the SEC. I've got losses to Clemson, at Alabama, and yeah, I've got losses to Oklahoma. I don't know where you guys. We can talk about this for the last 13 minutes or so. I think that puts you on as a bubble playoff team in terms of what some of your marquee wins do the rest of the year. Marquee wins.
It depends on how good Florida A&M,
South Carolina, how good and Ole Miss are.
You need them to be good.
Yeah, I've got 9-3. I guys, I think you're going to roll in Norman with some pretty big. Even if Oklahoma isn't, here's maybe a hot take. Even Oklahoma isn't primed to go 9-3 if they win that game, Venables could be coaching for his job, and that would be something that can he get to that 8-4 mark that maybe keeps him there. So that's where I'm going with it. 9-3, 6-2 in the conference. Those 3 losses at Clemson, at Oklahoma, at Alabama. Funny you say that, Brune. I've got them all on the road where you and I've talked about. Kind of gets iffy with there. So Shea, where you sit. Go ahead and should we let Shea go last? Because apparently people think he's going to be the savior of the podcast if we let him go last.
Okay, yeah, I'll go next. I'll go next. I got 9-3 as well. I did wrestle with the potential of 10 wins. I also have Clemson and Alabama. Those 2 are just too tough for me. I picked LSU to beat Alabama at home last year. Obviously, that just went awry. I think Alabama's legitimately good. I think Alabama might be the best team on this schedule. I'm very bullish on Alabama's talent defensively, regardless of how good Ty Simpson is.
They've got really good skill talent.
Really. Yeah, and then they have good players. Clemson, I mean, I think they are very good. I just go watch. I understand. Like, I even went and watched their loss to Louisville to try to gas myself up into thinking like, oh, they're not that good. I think they're really good. So
just give us how did the Saints quarterback look in that game?
Yeah, that does shock. And then the third loss to me, I wrestled with a few here, but I will not pick LSU to lose at home. Like I said, I've seen them pull out too many games where they should not have won in Tiger Stadium that they did. So I went on the road again. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I do think Lane Kiffin is a very, very good coach. He's 39-13 in the last in the last 4 years at Ole Miss, and I mean continues
which is
to
a
rack
place
up.
that does not get that.
Yeah,
Like
I
very
don't think people
sparing
are
opportunity.
understanding how incredible that is, what he's done at Ole Miss. And I understand they didn't quite live up to expectations last year. Still, very good season for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Lane Kiffin's a very good coach. I think Austin Simmons is a good quarterback. They have enough talent there, and it's on the road. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Ole Miss.
Shea,
So
bring it
wait,
home.
what were your 3 losses, Matty B?
Clemson, Bama, Ole Miss.
Okay. Okay. Just so we can have a fourth opinion, I did chat GBT this, and it was exactly what Bryce went with. So Bryce, you're on chat GBT alert right now.
Damn,
Those are the 3 losses as well.
that's crazy.
I'm going 10-2. And
Thank you.
I think 12-0 is so far fetched. I think that 11-1 is very tough. I think 10-2 is doable. I think they're going. Because I don't know, I haven't seen Ty Simpson play yet, but I know how talented Bama is, and they're very well coached. I think Clemson's the best team. The best team they play this year, they play next weekend. And when you're trying to work in all these new pieces, and Clemson's not really having to do that at the same level LSU is, there isn't many, and the ACC sucks, but there isn't many people you would trust that are predicting playoffs, right, that don't have Clemson in it.
Yeah.
And Clemson's returning a great quarterback, a great D line. You win in the trenches. I think that it'll be a close game. I mean, I can obviously see LSU winning, but they're underdogs in this game by 4 points. It was 4.5 at one point. That place is going to be rocking. And you're trying to figure things out. Like I said, marry all this stuff together against a team that may be the best team that you play all year. That's a top 5 team in the country in their place. So going into this week, and I don't think anybody would say that I'm down on this team or any of us if we say that, hey, they may not beat Clemson, and right now I'd predict a loss. My other one would be Bama. And again, I haven't seen Ty Simpson yet, but I know how talented they are. I know how much depth they have. I know how well coached they are. And you're playing there. And playing in Bryant-Denny is tough. And they want to rebound from a team that should have gone to the playoffs last year because they had no business losing to OU or Vandy. So they've got a bit of that in their mind. I think that those are the 2 teams. I don't think they'll lose to OU, even with it being my sneaky game, because if you can position yourself to be in a spot where, hey, if we win this game, we get to 10 wins, and 10 wins is in this new era of college football, this expanded playoffs. You win 10 games in the SEC, you're in.
Yeah.
Tennessee proved it last year. Say it again.
Maybe hosting, like if the cards fall right.
Perhaps, right. So I think that it's spread out well. Like, let's just say they lose to Clemson. That Florida game becomes so paramount because if you can get past it at home, it buys you a little time to sandwich it between a couple of games you're going to win, La Tech, Southeastern. Matty B mentions Ole Miss. That one's as paramount as Florida is. South Carolina is almost like for me, and they're more talented, but the Bama's version of Vandy and OU last year. Like, LSU knew South Carolina was talented, but they went out there and South Carolina just kicked LSU in the mouth. Yeah. And they were fortunate to get out of there with a win. Now that it's at home, I like it more. Vandy ain't sneaking up on them. I've already talked about Marcel Reed not sneaking up on them. The Bama game's that November 8th one. And then we've talked about it. Arkansas is not good. Western Kentucky's not good. Even if you lose to Clemson and Bama, you go into that game in Norman saying, hey, look, we hit 9 wins. If we can just win this game, we're in the playoffs. And as Bryce said, maybe hosting. So who knows? By then, too, maybe a 9-win team can get in for the first time if everything's mayhem. But
yeah,
it goes back to how I started the pod, that the team that plays Clemson for LSU is not the same team that's going to play OU at the end of the year. If you're still relatively healthy and that, you're grooving, everybody's now on the same page. So I'm going 10-2. Playoff bound.
Last thing here, because I don't know if you guys have done this far, and we can just real quickly hit this before we get out of here, but I did some my own kind of playoff projection, and I had LSU making it facing Clemson, I believe, in the second round of the playoffs. And I had them winning for what you said, Shea. I think that the team that plays this weekend is not the same team that's going to play. And the edge that I give Clemson, we'll talk about this later in the week, is they have a lot of things returning for them and they kind of know who they are. I think LSU knows who they want to be. I just don't know if it's going to happen immediately. And if it doesn't happen immediately on the road against a really good opponent, like you mentioned, doesn't mean they're a bad team. It just means maybe that the timing wasn't right. I think if they play them again later in the season, it's hard to beat a team twice in 1 year, but I think that LSU team is vastly different. So I had them reaching, by the way, the semifinals of a playoff appearance. I know, Brune, you mentioned that. Shea, do you have a
Let me make
inkling
sure
of
I'm
where you
getting
think-
this right here. And me and Maddie B joke about this all the time with the mailbag. We try to keep it under an hour and we barely ever do it, but we may keep this one under an hour. You think they can go 9-3 and make the playoffs?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think if the SEC
It hasn't
is,
happened yet
It
for
hasn't
anybody.
happened yet.
if the SEC is better, which it better be better than last year, because last year was just disappointing. Like you had
Yeah.
teams dropping random games, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Alabama, so on. If the good teams in the SEC are actually really good, and like there's a contention at the top here, I could see like if LSU's only losses are Clemson, Bama, and someone else, and then if the other teams on the schedule are
Well,
actually
let's say
good.
it's Ole Miss, Maddie B. Off of,
All right, if
off
it's
of
Ole
your
Miss
schedule.
and then Oklahoma, like you go into that game both 8-3, you would get that win. Let's say A&M has a good year, they win 8 games, that's a win. Like South Carolina, Vanderbilt have decent to good years. Like those games,
An
you
early
guess
win
them.
versus Florida.
Florida, yeah, like there's enough quality games here where I can see it. The SEC will have to be good to have to be legitimately good this year, because that's what hurt last year is people didn't think the SEC was that good, and I think that's the difference.
The other part of that, Maddie B, would be that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even if they had lost to Bama, LSU would have gone 6-1 in their final games. When you get to the end of it, even if you're 9-3, if the committee's sitting there in what should be a better SEC saying,
Playing their best football,
man, they played a lot of good teams and they just went 6-1 down the stretch when their backs were against the wall. There's something to be said for it, which is the same kind of line of thinking I have of even if they lose week 1, I've already seen this team lose week 1 5 years in a row or whatever it is. They get backs against the wall, and then all of a sudden you look up in middle of October and they're playing Ole Miss and both teams are 6-7-1 or whatever. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, if you lose to Bama and the margin for error is 0 now, they're not going to lose to Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and they're going to be dialed in for OU. So I see what both of y'all are saying.
You know who's a team that went 6-1 in their final 7 games last year? South Carolina.
Ohio State.
Yeah, but I'm saying South Carolina didn't get in. They were 9-3, finished the year 9-3. So it does depend on what.
Yeah,
they were big mad.
They were very
big mad. They were not excited about that. But hey, you know what we're excited about? College football being back, baby. I'm pumped about it. We had some awesome time in fall camp, but it's time to turn the page. And we can't wait to do that with you right here on the YouTube channel. But also make sure you check out Bengal Tiger. Head over to On3, get that subscription like we talked about in the opening of the show. Great content for both these guys on either side of me, for myself as well, as we continue to patrol through Brian Kelly, talking with the media tomorrow, player interviews this week, and then obviously leading up to that game against Clemson. But, man, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We appreciate you liking the stream, watching here live. If you watch or listen after the fact, we really do appreciate that as well. Last question, because we got about a minute and a half here. Does Shea have a typewriter behind him?
No, that's a singular question. I have multiple typewriters behind me. Yeah, a bunch of old school Smith and Corona typewriters and a Lego typewriter that my wife my better half got me for a gift, and I put together. So I'm a big typewriter fan.
There we go.
I'm on a typewriter right now. The Wi-Fi on it's amazing.
I was gonna say it's also the header on Twitter. Your header on Twitter.
Yeah, that's
fair. Right.
That is fair. He is Shea Dixon. That is Matthew Brune. My name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We will catch you next Sunday for this show with all 3 of us. But you can, like I said, hit those notifications, subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to get all that content. And like I said, make sure you head over to the site. We talk a lot of stuff on here, but if you want more in-depth coverage, you want some of that inside intel, whether it's football recruiting, basketball, Matty B, or baseball, we're going to be excited to continue to talk about those all fall, December, winter, and spring long. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll catch you next time here on the Sunday stream edition of the Bengal Tiger